I genuinely think that being able to distinctly know and discover the one thing that we are exceptionally good at is one of the most critical and desperately sought after moments for every single one of us young men in our 20s and 30s. Although realistically, it is not always necessary to discover it for us to become proficient or successful at something, nor is it always opportunistically available or accessible for everyone to discover it. It is without a doubt one of those significantly lingering questions that often presents itself in the forefront of our minds, especially for us who find it hard to endure dispassionate efforts that eventually gets us to have a deep, often frustrating introspection with ourselves of trying to desperately decide what endeavor we should entirely commit to. What am I really good at? I don't know what I really like doing. I have no clue what really excites me, and all those amplified, skeptical narratives that we generate for ourselves. Finding our potential is a very tempting feat, as most men never get to conscientiously explore them, yet alone admittingly discover and acknowledge them in their lifetimes. Now, the old me would have said, well, just try everything as much as you can and find out eventually what clicks the most for you. And although that is quite a masculine-driven advice, now when I think of it, it is not exactly the cleverest nor the most efficient strategy to try and discover your potential. As when it comes to potential, it's quite rather a semi-abstract existence, as you can never really exactly or plausibly fathom how much of them you actually possess within a specific endeavor until you practically demonstrate them to a high extent. That is why mindlessly and randomly exploring its extent without any sense of focus or specificity, it will more often than not deviate you from accessing its magnitude. And also, there are so many factors influencing its magnitude, such as inherited inclinations, natural predispositions, cultural adoptions, specific upbringings, life-changing events, and many more. So you can never really exactly decipher the scope of its reach until you've actually reached it. You need several specific methods of approach when it comes to discovering your strengths that can also properly serve and relate to your current unique circumstances. This is an approach that literally everyone can utilize, and should try to utilize in my opinion. Especially for those of you gentlemen who are currently completely lost and utterly perplexed on what endeavor you should start committing to, or at least highly consider in committing. The Primal Roots approach is about recollecting important pieces of your times during childhood, of which there are many of course, but this is about those moments where you became totally enamored by a subject or an object, where you inadvertently and wondrously immersed yourself deeply into its core. It's those things that occupied your entire scope of attention intensely whenever you looked at it, touched it, heard about it, and performed it. And it's often those things and endeavors that you spent unrecognizable amounts of time with and got lost within it on your own during your free time outside of school, video games, and movies. Things that profoundly spark a deep level of connection, sense of heightened awareness, and irresistible attraction from within you. Things that initiate a sense of deep wonder, fascination, and vast constructs of imagination within your mind beyond what's initially plausible of that particular subject or object whenever you spend time on them. Like Albert Einstein's eventual fixation and obsession towards understanding the hidden invisible forces within this universe, like gravity and energy, all started when his father gave him a compass when he was 5 years old, where he became utterly fascinated by the needle which points at a different direction wherever he goes and turns. This was what touched him to the core of his undying fascination in the beginning. When we are children, our minds are fluid, dynamic, passionate, and curious. We purely do things for our own sake to fulfill those endless thirsts in understanding the circumstances around us. As we grow up, our minds become more structured, conventional, systematic, but at the same time rigid and cautious. This caused us to play by the rules that are set for us extensively. Our matured and judgmental minds allow us to make better decisions for ourselves, but at the same time, utilizing too much of them for too often will bury or shove that childhood creativity, curiosity, and playfulness into the back of our heads. You must unlock this sense of dynamism back by becoming single-mindedly adventurous for your own sake, regardless of outside influence and judgments. The evolution approach is for those of you who are already relatively proficient in a certain field yet struggles to find that massive leap to strongly identify your own unique place within that endeavor. The evolution approach is literally about specialization, where you identify a particularly small yet crucial or critical subject within a scope of a skill set and redirect a great majority of your focus towards that respective subject, through delving way deeper into the much smaller wormholes that most people operating within your craft rarely explore or yet to discover. Narrowing further down your niche niche will allow you to create or develop your own distinct space of operation, which will separate you from the rest as your skill set becomes way more saturated and tailored for specific needs, which will ultimately make you more sought after as you become extensively proficient within that particular scope of skill set. An example of this is Leonard Loxdale, a tailor based in New York who pretty much make relatively similar luxurious bespoke tailored suits for men just like other tailors in Savile Row in England. But what makes him unique or distinguishes him from other tailors is that he had extensive knowledge and experience within the style of suits produced during the era of the 1960s and 1970s with wide lapels, flare-cut trousers, flashy colors, and big pockets. This is the main reason why he was one of the only sought-after tailors to be selected to make suits destined for many big and major Hollywood motion pictures, over 30 of them in fact, ranging from The Wolf of Wall Street, American Gangster, and Bridge of Spies. The fusion approach, on the other hand, is similarly for those of you who are already relatively proficient in a certain field, yet finding it extremely difficult or obstructed in pursuing a higher degree of expertise within that field, maybe due to financial or political or personal reasons. In this case, the fusion approach is about discovering another interest outside of your field of which, when you eventually become proficient with it, could be effectively utilized to complement or become a driving force to alleviate your other field into new heights or dimensions of demonstration and even expertise. This is actually a lot of what people utilize nowadays, combining the skills and experience they've accumulated over the years through corporation employment and utilizing another skill to further promote their expertise into a new dimension of demonstration, allowing them to discover and penetrate new markets or opportunities. Like for example, cooking and editing, finance and writing, language and literature, or engineering and journalism, just like our favorite car presenter Jeremy Clarkson. It is extremely important that these fields are flexible enough for you to utilize codependently, so to speak, in order for this strategy to work. Nothing is more potentially sabotaging than being proficient in two fields that exist on completely opposite ends of the skill spectrum, such as medicine and mechanical engineering, for example. We learn more from negative experiences than we do from positive experiences because negative experiences raise way more questions needed answering, and because we human beings innately respond defensively towards threats. The more dire the experience is, the more we either tend to avoid it completely or the more we want to try and create solutions towards it due to the strong emotional callings. This particular approach involves capitalizing on our own protective response towards our traumatic or distressing experience in order to develop potential sources of resolution and redemption towards that experience. Those sources then become tools and outlets for us to both mitigate and or prevent previous damages from repeating themselves, and in turn can help in serving or assisting other people who faced similar experiences or damages. The late Chester Bennington was sexually abused by his own father at a very young age of 7, summoning various forms of insecurity, spite, and frustration, and caused him to experience further malice in his personal life, such as bullying. Writing poetry and music became his outlet to mitigate the psychological damages that scarred him for life. Music was his tool or outlet to passionately express his thoughts and feelings, which later served as the outlet for millions of other people around the world experiencing relatively the same physical and psychological damages as he did. This allows those who listen to his music feel a sense of comfort and relatability, which help them break out from the feelings of isolation and loneliness. Solving your own major problems and utilizing those solutions to try and help others facing relatively similar circumstances compels you to develop a profound sense of righteous duty to try and make the world you're living in a much better place than when you found it, allowing you to go to great lengths and extent to assist others as much as possible. It's a very powerful driving force, one only you can understand, as it is deeply rooted to your emotional core, which allows you to extensively understand and empathize with others going through similar circumstances. Most of us tend to stay away as far as possible from negative or traumatic experiences as they trigger a dreadful response through profound and blunt emotional rush. But understand that running away from those experiences will only further amplify your sense of dread towards it, as what you resist will always persist. This is probably the hardest one for me personally to accept, as I've always believed that in order for anyone to excel at a particular craft or a trade, you always need to have some form of devoted obsession and fascination in order for you to sustain in developing the necessary skills and knowledge to eventually become successfully proficient. But again, I was wrong, and this was practically proven by my own uncle. He was born in a family of medical trade, a line of acupuncturists to be exact. He was taught about the trade from an early age by my grandparents and went to America to pursue his further education on the trade. He is currently a very successful acupuncturist, way more successful than my grandparents ever were, and also a lecturer at a medical university. And when I asked him personally whether he genuinely have a deep level of passion and curiosity in his craft, he said these words: "To be frankly honest, I don't. Not one bit. It's hard and arduous, and sometimes borderline enslavement, as you don't get to sleep very much and you're always busy day in and day out." Now, of course, hearing those words got me extremely perplexed, and I asked him next, "So what made you spend over 4 decades mastering this craft? There has to be some sort of reason for your motivation from your end." And his answer is what caught me off guard. He said, "Honestly, I have no idea. I think it's just the sense of responsibility that I had ever since I was introduced to this trade by your grandparents, to just get good at this shit even though I'm not talented, to provide a better life for them and of course myself. It was never about passion or obsession. I didn't know anything else but this. This was my only ticket. I mean, getting the respect, acknowledgement, and gratitude from those people I cured is a nice little boost to get me up in the morning. And of course, the money is very substantial. But in all sense and purposes, it's all just about being a responsible man and being responsible for your duties and circumstances, really. Nothing spiritual or metaphysical is influencing me. It took me a while to digest all of these, but in essence, it's all about getting things done with minimal emotional attachment. Oftentimes, when we want to commit to something, we wonder extensively about the reasons of why we're doing it, whether we'll be successful at it in the end, or whether we are making the right choice, which are basically all the things that I've mentioned in the beginning of this video. Of course, it is crucial to weigh in your options in order to make the most optimal decision. However, sometimes you don't have all the options when your entire back is against the wall, and your only choice is to push through it regardless of how you feel, either because you are in need to keep your head above water in life or because time is against you. You just have to do what is necessary and avoid all incoming doubts and questions creeping up your mind. Don't feel. Just do what is needed to be done and do it well like your life depends on it. Men need a sense of purpose in life. Passionate or not, truth be told, it all depends on our own perspective towards it. Our own realization of our true potential can only be practically acknowledged by us when we put tremendous amount of time and effort into whatever we choose to commit. You won't ever know what you are really capable of by just sitting ducks and trying to get that aha moment through introspection alone. You have to know the extent and limitations of your circumstances and apply the most appropriate strategy to optimally explore your potential with regards to the amount of effort and time. It won't always be as ecstatic of a sensation as you tend to imagine it will be, but again, it is entirely your choice to commit. Good luck, gentlemen.